You know, like you see it now with people with like the coronavirus who are just like, oh, I'll never get sick. I don't, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. It's like, you know, maybe you won't, but like if you don't care about it, like there's a good chance somebody you know could, because you're kind of being a dick by not washing your hands.
Well, and especially because the coronavirus specifically has such a delayed onset that you can be walking around as a carrier and an infectious, giving it to people not knowing. And you might even have a mild case of it, not realizing it's corona. And thanks to incompetent in chief, you know, we're not running enough tests. We had a bunch of faulty tests. You know, like there are, I was just watching a video earlier today where they were talking about how I believe South Korea is doing 10,000 tests a day. Okay. We've done like 4,000 tests total.
So
we're America.
I know. It's insanity. So my mom actually works at the hospital where the first 2 coronavirus patients in Illinois were. And she works in administration, so she's fine. But she was telling me that like the CDC provided all these materials and stuff because, you know, you need to be prepared worst case scenario. And the patients were looking up. I think they've been fine and like returned to like home quarantine. But the CDC took all the stuff back. Like they're not equipping hospitals to handle stuff. And the worst part is like if there are 2 cases like in a hospital, like in that area, that means there are more. Right. Because they're not going out and testing, you know, they're trying to like backtrack and figure out all the people that the infected persons may have come in contact with. But as we know, like the incubation period is like, I think it's like 2 weeks. It's a long time.
2 weeks.
So, you know, they can test them now and 3 days later they could be sick. And the CDC is like taking the material because they didn't prepare the government.
They don't have enough.
Well, they did just sign that bill. It's like $8 billion, and I think it's supposed to be allocated in the next 30 days. Half of it's supposed to be allocated in the next 30 days. But I mean, the clock's ticking, man.
Well, so here's the thing. Another thing that I don't know if enough people know is that when the Ebola crisis happened, Obama actually appointed a bunch of different people to kind of connect several parts of government that normally really just are not connected. You know, we think of government as this big monolith, but really it's a bunch of independent departments kind of with their own needs and desires. And so he created like this pandemic task force that was meant to unite, you know, different parts of production. So, you know, having the CDC and the FDA and like all these other things that are going to be needed to make sure that we can allocate resources on a massive scale because, you know, this is one kind of virus, but there are other ones that could spread that could have a completely different characteristic. So you would need different responses for that. And Trump fired all of those people. Not because there was like, it didn't cost that much money. It wasn't a big drain on the budget. He fired him specifically because Obama did it, and he's trying to undo everything Obama did.
Those people are, the worst part is like, those are career bureaucrats. Like, you know, they may vote one way or another. They may have been a political appointee, but I feel like I can say in earnest, like the Obama administration did a good job of like putting people in places, positions like that, where they actually have a skill set that can be used in like a worst case scenario. And just getting rid of that, like we're seeing like how terrible it can be. You know, like the mortality rate's like 3.4%, which is super high.
Very high.
It still may not be as, the volume of people who have died as a result is not as high as the flu, but the mortality rate is like significantly higher.
Not yet.
Exactly.
You know, give it more time to start spreading, especially with us not testing and not knowing where it is and not quarantining properly.
Exactly.
I mean, the only reason why China is even remotely saying that they got it under control, which by the way, take everything they say with a grain of salt.
I've been so skeptical. I'm like pulling for them because I'm like, I don't want things to get worse. But at the same time,
they're probably not telling the whole truth. Well, let's say that they did somehow get it in line. They quarantined entire fucking cities.
That like whole province, they have travel restrictions on that whole province.
And they have been shipping in like trucks of food, like 60 truckloads of food. That's something that, I'm sorry, America's not going to do.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can only do something like that with an authoritarian state. Like that's one of the few examples where like their like philosophy and government is actually going to be beneficial to them, even though
despite the other
I mean there's still
massive amounts of negatives, but yes, that is one where you can kind of fully take control and be like, nah, this is what we're doing.
Exactly. And then there's still egg on their face for how they handled the entire situation to begin with.
Definitely.
But I mean, I guess props to them. They seem like they're working hard, which is good. I appreciate it.
I mean, it's in their, despite them being an authoritarian regime, it is in their best interest to make sure that not a bunch of people die. You know, they still need those people to do shit. So as much as they love to make people disappear, they also do need people to be in the factories and do all the
Plus,
jobs.
you know, like they got to keep it under control to
maintain their control.
Yeah, exactly. The illusion of good government and the illusion of everything's okay. They got to worry about that stuff still. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure all the people in China have no faith in their government.
Oh no, they're like really riled up over there. Like they're really, I think like NPR and Fresh Air has interviewed some people, or not Fresh Air, This American Life. It's in China, but This American Life.
American China Life.
I was thinking about that. Like they did when the Hong Kong protests were going on. They went over there and interviewed.
Oh, they're still going on, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
Yeah, they're still going on.
Like China right now is, it's like a boiling pot that's about to go over. There's a lot of things going on there. I know they're still like trying to like control more of the South China Sea and the Pacific and become more of a player internationally and territory and stuff. There's just so many things going on with China and everything that they just interact with. It's nuts. It's tough to keep track of all this stuff.